Welcome. We're here to get past the surface noise and really understand the stories that stick with us. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute classics, a truly powerful, heartbreaking story. The High Tale of Tristan and Iseult. And this isn't just, swords and adventure. It's a deep emotional dive, really, driven by fate, loyalty, desire.
Yeah,
It all clashes until, well, death seems like the only way out.
it really is. And for this deep dive, we're drawing straight from Joseph Bédier's fantastic retelling. He pulled together the best French sources that survived. Bédier didn't just copy things down, he was weaving them together,
Yeah.
making sure those core themes, especially that crushing weight of destiny and the psychological pain of the characters, really come through clearly.
Right.
So our mission today is to follow Tristan's life, pretty much step by step, from that incredibly sad birth all the way to the final inescapable tragedy. We'll focus on the dramatic twists, the characters' minds, and how that love potion really drives everything.
It feels like every moment of happiness in this story is immediately undercut by some kind of tragic twist. It starts right at the very beginning, doesn't it? Tristan's whole identity is kind of stamped with sorrow. Let's get into that.
Okay, so the setting is medieval Cornwall. King Mark is the ruler, a noble guy. The backstory kicks off with King Rivalen of Lyonesse. He's a loyal supporter who helps Mark out. And as a reward, Mark gives Rivalen his sister, Blanchefleur, to marry. And Rivalen apparently loved her most marvelously. So you think, okay, classic romance starting.
But nope. Happiness is incredibly fragile here. Blanchefleur and Rivalen barely get back to Lyonesse before Rivalen gets ambushed, killed by this treacherous Duke Morgan.
Exactly. And Blanchefleur, she's pregnant, completely devastated. But she doesn't rage or just weep endlessly. The text says she just waits, almost passively, for release.
That's intense.
It's incredibly powerful and so sad. She mourns him for 3 days, and on the 4th, she gives birth. Her very last act before she dies of grief herself is naming the baby. She says something like, "Little son, I've waited so long to see you. In sadness I came here. In sadness I gave birth. And in sadness is your first feast day.
Mm.
And because you came by sadness, your name will be Tristan, the child of sadness." It literally defines him. He's marked for tragedy from his first breath. Born from sorrow, not joy.
And the only reason he survives is because of this loyal marshal, Rohalt. He hides Tristan away from Duke Morgan for years, risking his own safety. Once things calm down, Tristan gets this amazing education from his squire, Cornwall, sets him apart immediately.
We should probably pause on his education for a second, because it's really important for who he becomes. Cornwall teaches him the usual knightly stuff, lance, sword, archery, sure, but he makes him like a Renaissance man before the Renaissance. Tristan masters songs, different languages, and crucially, the harp. He becomes this incredible musician, which is a big part of why Mark's court loves him later. But maybe the most vital skill is the art of venery, the hunter's craft.
Venery. Why is that so much more important than just, knowing how to hunt?
Because in those courts, venery wasn't just sport, it was a whole ritual, social, moral. There were strict rules for how you cut up the stag, distributed the parts, this piece for the king, this for the hounds. Learning it meant learning order, tradition, basically how a true noble should act. Cornwall made sure Tristan wasn't just skilled, but had real integrity, taught him to hate every lie and felony, and to keep his given word. That moral grounding makes his later struggles even more painful for him.
Right, that sense of order and duty. And it gets tested pretty quickly when fate steps in. He gets kidnapped.
Yeah, by Norwegian merchants. They plan to sell him. But the world itself seems to, reject the crime. Well, the story says, the sea will hardly bear a felon ship. The ocean literally fights back. A huge storm hits, terrifying the merchants. It's this judgment of the sea idea. It establishes early on that Tristan is special, maybe under divine protection, or at least cosmic forces are involved in his fate. The merchants freak out, think he's cursed or something, and just abandon him in a small boat. No rudder, no sail. And where does it wash ashore? Cornwall, right where he needs to be.
Talk about destiny. And his knowledge of venery is what gets him noticed immediately, right? He finds King Mark's huntsman butchering a stag all wrong.
Exactly. Like this is just some farmyard hog. Tristan, being properly educated, is horrified. He basically shouts, "Stop, you're disrespecting this noble animal." Then he shows them the right way, the high art, how to dress the kill properly, assigning the parts by rank. It's not just about cutting meat. It's a performance of his noble upbringing, his understanding of how things should be done.
And this impresses everyone. He gets brought to Tintagel at Mark's castle, and the king feels this instant connection.
Yeah, the text says it's blood that spoke. Mark doesn't know it's his nephew, Blanchefleur's son. but something deep inside recognizes the bond. And then Tristan plays the harp, sings beautifully all those skills Gorvenal taught him, and just charms the whole court. Mark loves him instantly, calls him nephew, lets him sleep right there in the royal chamber. Tristan's loyalty to Mark becomes absolute.
And then Roholt shows up with proof, the carbuncle stone.
Right, that confirms his identity. Tristan is now fully recognized. He even goes back and reclaims his family lands in Lyonesse from Duke Morgan. But here's his first major choice, driven by that deep loyalty. He gives the lands back to Roholt to manage and chooses to dedicate his life, his body, entirely to serving King Mark.
That's a huge commitment.
It's critical. He consciously chooses loyalty to Mark over his own power and independence. That's what makes everything that happens next, the fight with the Morholt, the potion, such a profound betrayal, not just of Mark, but of his own core principles.
And that loyalty gets put to the test almost immediately with the arrival of the Morholt from Ireland.
Oh yeah, the demand is just outrageous. Ireland wants tribute. 300 young men, 300 young women, every year. And enforcing this demand is the Morholt, this fearsome giant of a knight. His sister's the Queen of Ireland, so he's got connections. While all the Cornish barons are just shuffling their feet, looking down afraid, Tristan steps up. He throws down the challenge.
Even though Mark begs him not to?
Exactly. Mark doesn't want to lose him, but Tristan insists. And the scene before the fight is pure drama. He pushes his own boat away from the island where they'll fight, basically saying, only one of us is leaving here alive. We'll only need one boat. Total confidence, or maybe fatalism.
And he wins, but it's not a clean victory.
Far from it. He kills the Morholt, yes, but he gets wounded by one of the Morholt's poisoned weapons. And even more significantly, a piece of Tristan's own sword, which might also have been poisoned or just special, breaks off and gets stuck in the Morholt's skull. Tristan sends that splinter back with the defeated Irish, calling it the tribute of Cornwall. A bit grim.
That splinter. That's going to come back, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like Chekhov's sword fragment. The Morholt's body is taken back to Ireland. His niece, Iseult the Fair, who's famous for her healing skills, she's the one who finds the splinter when tending the body. She carefully pulls it out and keeps it. She knows exactly what killed her uncle, and she vows revenge on the owner of that sword.
Meanwhile, Tristan is back in Cornwall, dying from the Morholt's poison.
Slowly and horribly. The wound festers, the stench is unbearable. Everyone avoids him except for Mark and the ever-faithful Gorvenal. The poison is just that bad. He's in despair, basically waiting to die or hoping for some miracle cure. So what does he do? He again puts himself in fate's hands, gets in a boat without oars or sail, just lets the sea decide, like when he was a boy.
And where does the sea take him this time?
You guessed it. Right back to Ireland, to Whitehaven.
Straight to Iseult the Fair. The one person who might heal him and the one person who wants him dead.
Precisely. He arrives disguised, claims he's a minstrel attacked by pirates. Iseult, moved by his suffering, and especially by his incredible harp playing, starts to heal him. She doesn't recognize him as Tristan, her uncle's killer. He manages to leave before she puts two and two together, but that connection, that thread of fate, has now been firmly tied between them.
Okay, so the immediate physical danger seems over, but now the pressure shifts, right? It becomes more political, internal.
The four felon barons, yeah. Andret, Gwynelon, Gondwyn, Denolan. Their jealousy of Tristan is just huge. They see him as Mark's favorite, maybe even a rival for the throne. So they start pressuring Mark. They demand he marry, produce a proper heir. They even threaten war if he doesn't sideline Tristan.
Mark's caught in the middle, loyal to Tristan, but he has to think about the kingdom.
Exactly. An impossible spot. So he tries to stall them with an impossible task. And this is where we get that really iconic moment, a pure fluke of destiny.
The swallows and the hare.
That's the one. Two swallows fly into Mark's chamber, fight, and drop a single, long, fine strand of pure gold hair. Mark grabs it and says, okay, fine, I'll marry, but only the woman this hair belongs to. He figures, who could possibly find her? It's a way to shut the barons up.
But Tristan recognizes it instantly.
He does, because he was nursed by Iseult the Fair back in Ireland when he was poisoned. He knows it's her hair. He understands the danger going back to the place where the queen's niece swore to kill him. But he accepts the quest anyway. Why? To prove his absolute loyalty to Mark, to silence the baron's accusations that he wants the throne for himself. It's crucial. He's not motivated by love for this unknown woman, but by duty to Mark.
So he sails back to Ireland, disguised as a merchant again, but things have gotten even more complicated there.
Haven't they just? He lands in Whitehaven and learns there's a new problem. A monstrous dragon is terrorizing the place, demanding a maiden sacrifice every day. And the reward for killing this dragon, the hand of Iseult the Fair in marriage,
Wow. Destiny just keeps throwing them together, doesn't it? He walks right into the situation that gets him the prize Mark sent him for.
He doesn't hesitate. Finds this horrible creature described with, like, a bear's head, serpent's tail, lion's claws, breathing fire, the works. He fights it, kills it. And to prove he did it, he cuts out the dragon's tongue. Standard procedure, right?
Yeah.
But the tongue is so venomous, just touching it makes him collapse, unconscious, almost dead again.
Which opens the door for someone else to steal the credit.
Right. This cowardly seneschal, who also wants to marry Iseult, stumbles onto the scene, finds the dead dragon, sees Tristan out cold. So he cuts off the dragon's head and goes back to the king, claiming he did it and demanding the reward Iseult.
But Iseult's not buying it.
Not for a second. She's suspicious of this seneschal. So she rides out with her mother, the queen, and her maid Brangian. They find Tristan barely clinging to life near the dragon's body. The queen recognizes him from his previous visit, maybe remembers his music. She uses some powerful herbs to start healing him. Iseult prepares a bath for the recovering knight.
And this is where she finally figures it out.
This is the moment. She's tending to him, maybe cleaning his armor, his sword. She looks closely at his sword, notices that distinctive notch, that missing piece. In a flash of horror, she remembers the splinter she kept in her jewel box. She runs, gets it, brings it back.
And it fits perfectly.
Perfectly. The man she's been healing, the Shiro who killed the dragon, is Tristan of Lyonesse, her uncle's killer, the man she swore to kill.
What does she do?
Her first instinct is pure vengeance. She grabs his own sword, lifts it to kill him right there in the bath. But Tristan, the weak, he speaks.
What can he possibly say?
He doesn't just plead for his life. He appeals to her sense of justice, her nobility. He argues the fight with the Morholt was fair combat, man to man. He upheld his honor. Then, crucially, he shows her the proof of his current mission. The single strand of golden hair, Iseult's own hair that King Mark gave him, sewn into his coat. He explains why he's there on an impossible quest for his king, driven by loyalty. It forces Iseult into this terrible choice: fulfill her vow of vengeance or recognize the hand of fate, his undeniable nobility, and the sheer impossibility of his quest for Mark.
And his words, his situation, sway her.
They do. She sees his integrity, maybe recognizes the pattern of destiny weaving around him. She lowers the sword, seals peace with a kiss, a formal gesture. She spares him. Tristan then recovers, easily proves the seneschal is a fraud in a trial by combat, and officially claims Iseult not for himself, but for his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall.
A victory hard won through skill, destiny, and near-death experiences. But this leads directly to the heart of the tragedy, doesn't it? The love potion.
Directly. Iseult's mother, the queen, she wants to make sure her daughter is safe and, well, loved in this foreign court she's being sent to. So she brews this incredibly powerful love potion, a philter.
And she gives it to Brangian, Iseult's maid, with very specific instructions.
Very specific and very potent. She tells Brangian, give this only to King Mark and Iseult on their wedding night. Whoever drinks this together will love each other forever in life and in death. It's meant to magically guarantee Iseult's position and their marital happiness.
But fate, or just sheer accident, intervenes.
Completely. On the voyage back to Cornwall, it's hot, they're thirsty. Tristan and Iseult are alone on deck for a moment. A little serving girl sees the fancy pitcher the queen prepared, thinking it's just special wine. She offers it to them innocently. And Tristan and Iseult, parched, drink it all down, the whole dose, meant for Mark and Iseult.
Oh no, Brangian must have been horrified when she found out.
Absolutely devastated. She finds the empty pitcher and just cries out, realizing the catastrophe. Cursed be the day I was born. You have drunk death together. She sees exactly what this means. This is the central conflict now.
Because this love isn't a choice they made, it's forced on them.
Yeah, exactly. It's an overwhelming, magical force. The text describes them as being immediately ravished and apart. They feel wretched when they're separated, but somehow even more wretched when they're together, knowing what it means. For Tristan especially, whose whole identity is built on loyalty to Mark, this is instant torture. He's betraying his king, his uncle, the man he swore himself to.
And by the third day at sea, they basically surrender to it.
The struggle is too much. The magic is too strong. Iseult acknowledges the bond, calls him my lord and my master, submitting to the power. And Tristan, accepting the terrible reality, essentially says, well then, let death come. They give in to the filter. Their life of secrets, pain, and inescapable love begins right there on that ship. So they arrive in Tintagel, and the deception has to start immediately. Iseult marries Mark, as planned. But to hide the fact that she's already bound by this magical love to Tristan and to protect her honor on the wedding night, Brangian does something incredibly loyal and probably traumatic. She takes Iseult's place in the dark wedding bed with King Mark. So Mark believes the marriage is properly consummated. No suspicions raised about Iseult's virginity.
Wow, that's quite a sacrifice from Brangian. But it doesn't stop those jealous barons, does it?
Not at all. They're convinced something's going on between Tristan and the new queen. Maybe it's political maneuvering, maybe they genuinely sense the connection. They keep whispering in Mark's ear, accusing Tristan of witchcraft, saying he still wants the throne.
Mark must be torn apart. He loves Tristan, but the pressure mounts.
He is. Deeply troubled. He resists, but eventually he gives in partly and banishes Tristan from the court. Just sends him away. But the filter makes true separation impossible. Tristan doesn't go far, he stays nearby, miserable without Iseult. This allows Brangian, still loyal to the lovers, to help them arrange secret meetings. In the orchard, by a tall pine tree, Tristan uses a signal dropping carved twigs into the stream that flows past Iseult's chambers.
Clever, but this leads to another trap involving that dwarf.
Frozen the dwarf, yeah. He's described as a malevolent, almost magical figure who advises the barons. He tells Mark how to catch them red-handed. He says, pretend to go on a long hunt, but double back and hide up in that very pine tree in the orchard. Wait for them.
And Mark actually does it. He spies on them.
He does. He's desperate for proof one way or the other. Tristan arrives first. He leans over the well or fountain near the tree to send his signal and sees the king's reflection in the water. He knows instantly they're caught.
What does he do? And Iseult's arriving any second.
She arrives, and she's incredibly sharp. She also spots the king's shadow. Or maybe Tristan signals her subtly. She immediately changes her whole demeanor, switches into this performance of perfect innocence, starts lamenting loudly how unfair it is that the king suspects her, how cruel the barons are. She begs Tristan, as Mark's loyal nephew and her protector, to please speak to the king on her behalf, to defend her honor, all using the most formal, respectful, courtly language.
That's brilliant, turning the tables completely.
Absolutely masterful. Mark, hidden in the tree, hears this whole exchange. He hears Iseult defending her honor, Tristan agreeing to help her with the king. He's completely convinced they're innocent. He feels terrible, full of pity. He decides the barons must have lied, slandered them out of jealousy. The trap backfired.
But the barons don't give up. They set another trap, the flower.
They are relentless. This time, it's physical evidence they want. They convince Mark to sprinkle flour on the floor between Tristan's bed, when he's allowed back at court briefly, and Iseult's chambers, or maybe between Mark's own bed and Tristan's sleeping area near the king. The idea is, if they meet secretly at night, one of them will leave footprints.
Okay, that sounds hard to avoid.
Tristan sees the flower. He knows it's a trap. He's determined not to give them proof. He tries to leap over the patch of flower. But remember that old wound he got from a boar hunt? It hasn't fully healed. As he leaps, the strain makes the wound bleed. He clears the flower. No footprints. But a few drops of his blood fall into the white powder.
Oh, devastating. The perfect, undesirable proof.
The witness, the text calls it. Mark finds it. His pity instantly vanishes, replaced by cold fury. This time, he believes the worst. He completely denies Tristan's demand for a trial by combat, a knight's fundamental right to prove innocence. He condemns both Tristan and Iseult to death by burning. A shameful, dishonorable execution.
The crowd feels sorry for the queen, though.
Yes, there's public outcry. Pity for Iseult. As Tristan is being dragged to the stake, he begs for one last chance to pray in a little chapel by the sea cliffs. They let him. Once inside, he makes his incredible, desperate move, the chantry leap. He vaults over the altar rail, smashes through a window, and just jumps off the sheer cliff. It should be certain death. But as the story says, the wind catches his cloak, calls it God's pity, and slows his fall, saving him from the rocks below. It's like divine intervention acknowledging his plight, maybe.
Amazing. But Mark's rage is still burning. What happens to Iseult?
Mark can't get Tristan, so he unleashes his fury on Iseult. His reaction is swift and truly terrible. He changes her sentence. Not fire, which is quick, but something he considers worse. He condemns her to be handed over to a group of lepers, led by their chief, Ivan. Mark actually says this is better justice and more terrible than burning.
To the lepers, that's horrific. In medieval times, that was like being dead while still alive.
Exactly. Utter social and religious ostracization. Living degradation. It's the depth of Mark's feeling of betrayal. But Tristan, who escaped the leap, meets up with Gorvenal. They find out what's happened, track down the leper caravan. Tristan warns Ivan off. Gorvenal ends up killing Ivan when he refuses. They rescue Iseult. And together, Tristan, Iseult, and Gorvenal flee into the deep forest, the wood of Moroi. They embrace this wild, savage life away from the court.
How long do they live like that? What's it like?
They're out there for a year, maybe longer. It's incredibly tough. They hunt for food, grow thin, their fine clothes turn to rags. But the text emphasizes that their love, fueled by the philter, is as strong as ever. The forest, ironically, becomes their kingdom. Cornwall even kills one of the pursuing traitor barons, Guenelon, when he foolishly follows them into the woods. They are, in a way, free.
But their conscience starts to bother them. This leads to that famous scene with the sword.
It does. Even in the freedom of the forest, the weight of their situation, their betrayal of Mark, gnaws at them. This leads to perhaps the most profound turning point in the whole story. One day, Mark is hunting in the forest, guided by a woodman who knows where Tristan and Iseult have their rough hut. Mark finds them asleep inside.
The naked sword scene. He finds them sleeping, but Tristan has put his bare sword between them.
Precisely. Mark enters, probably intending to finally kill them both. He sees them lying there. But between them lies Tristan's naked sword blade. Now, in the symbolism of the time, a naked sword placed between a sleeping man and woman signified purity, chastity, a kind of judicial separation or restraint. It wasn't a sign of intimacy, but the opposite. Seeing this, Mark is stopped in his tracks. He's overwhelmed with, well, pity, confusion, maybe understanding. He concludes they are not guilty of treason, of plotting against him, even if they clearly love each other. He sees their suffering.
So he doesn't kill them. What does he do?
He performs this incredibly gentle, symbolic act. He takes off his own ermine-trimmed glove and lays it gently on Iseult's face to shield her from a sunbeam coming through the roof, a gesture of care, almost. Then he takes Tristan's sword, the one between them, and leaves his own royal sword in its place. A silent message. Then he leaves. When they wake up, Iseult sees the king's glove. Tristan sees the king's sword. They realize instantly, Mark was here. He saw us, and he spared us. That realization floods them both with guilt and remorse.
Why? Because of his nobility.
Yes. They see how much pain they're causing this fundamentally decent man, King Mark, who Tristan swore loyalty to. They also see the cost of their own savage life. They recognize they can't keep living like this, hiding in the woods, consumed only by their passion. It's destroying them and hurting others. They agree mutually that they have to separate. It's the noble thing to do.
So Tristan actually arranges to give Iseult back to Mark.
He initiates it. He gets help from Ogrin the Hermit, who writes a letter for him to Mark. In the letter, Tristan offers to return Iseult, and he includes this very carefully worded oath. He swears he loved her loyally, which is technically true, isn't it? The philter made him loyal to that love, above all else. It wasn't a betrayal in the sense of free choice. Mark, probably relieved and still feeling pity, agrees, but the condition is absolute. Tristan must leave Cornwall and never return.
They meet one last time, at the ford.
A heartbreaking meeting at the Ford of Chances. Tristan hands Iseult back to Mark's knights. He gives her his green jasper ring as a secret token, a sign of their undying hidden bond. Then he leaves. But as soon as Iseult is back at court, guess who starts stirring up trouble again?
The barons.
Of course. They refuse to believe she's innocent. They demand the ultimate proof. She must undergo the ordeal by red-hot iron. Touch a burning piece of iron, and if God protects her hand from burns, she's innocent.
A trial by ordeal. That sounds risky.
Extremely. But Iseult is incredibly clever. She agrees, but with a condition. King Arthur and his knights, including Sir Lancelot, must be present as official witnesses and guarantors. She knows the barons wouldn't dare question a verdict delivered before Arthur himself.
Okay, so the stage is set. But how does she plan to pass the test, knowing she has loved Tristan?
This is maybe the most ingenious lawyerly trick in the whole legend. She sends a secret message to Tristan, telling him where and when the ordeal will happen, near a river crossing. She tells him to disguise himself as a poor, ragged pilgrim. When her royal party reaches the river, she'll ask for help being carried across so she doesn't wet her fine clothes. He, the pilgrim, should carry her. And crucially, he needs to pretend to stumble and fall with her in his arms right onto the riverbank.
Okay. I think I see where this is going.
Right. So the day comes. Arthur's court is there, Mark's court is there, the relics of saints are brought out. Everything is solemn and official. Tristan plays his part perfectly, the dirty pilgrim carrying the queen. He stumbles, they fall together in the mud and sand. Everyone laughs at the clumsy peasant. Then Iseult steps forward to take the oath. Before God, the saints, and both kings, she swears, clear as a bell. I swear that no man has ever held me in his arms saving King Mark, my lord, and that poor pilgrim who just fell with me by the river.
Which is absolutely, literally true.
Technically, completely true, Tristan was the pilgrim. And then she reaches out, takes hold of the red-hot iron bar, and her hands remain perfectly unharmed. Fresh and clean and cold, the text says. God himself seems to validate her oath.
That's incredible. It raises huge questions, though. Did God approve of the trick, or did the ordeal system just fail?
That's the brilliant ambiguity, isn't it? You could read it as a critique of the ordeal, how human cleverness can manipulate a system meant to reveal divine truth. Or perhaps more poetically, maybe God did recognize the truth behind the words. Maybe God knew their love was compelled by the filter, by fate, and therefore they weren't truly guilty in a way that deserved divine punishment. The technical truth was enough because the spiritual situation was beyond their control. Fate, the filter, wins again. So Iseult is declared innocent. Tristan, honoring his agreement, leaves Cornwall forever. He travels, has adventures, ends up in Brittany. There he helps the local Duke, Hoel, in a war. He fights bravely as always. He becomes close friends with the Duke's son, Caradon. Time passes. 2 years, the story says. He hears nothing from Iseult the Fair. Maybe letters don't get through. Maybe she's fully committed to being Mark's queen now. Tristan is heartbroken, lonely, trying desperately to move on from the constant pain of the filter's pull.
He tries to build a new life.
He tries. Duke Hoel, grateful for Tristan's help, offers him his daughter in marriage. Her name, ironically, is also Iseult, Iseult of the White Hands. And Tristan, in his despair, wanting to forget, wanting maybe a normal life, agrees. He marries Iseult of the White Hands, convinced that Iseult the Fair in Cornwall has forgotten him or moved on.
But the filter won't let him forget.
Never. On his wedding night with Iseult of the White Hands, as he's maybe undressing, that green jasper ring, the one Iseult the Fair gave him at the ford, falls from his finger or catches his eye. Seeing it instantly breaks through his attempt to forget. The memory of Iseult the Fair, the power of the magical bond, the vow the filter represents, all comes flooding back. He can't go through with it. He tells his new bride, Iseult of the White Hands, some story about having to keep a religious vow of chastity for the first year or first few nights. The bottom line is, the marriage is never consummated.
Oh, that poor second Iseult. Confused, humiliated.
Utterly. Left in limbo. Meanwhile, somehow, news of Tristan's marriage reaches Iseult the Fair back in Cornwall. She's devastated, thinking he's broken their eternal bond. And Tristan, back in Brittany, is now consumed again by the filter's power. The separation becomes unbearable physical agony. He realizes he has to see Iseult the Fair again, even if it means death. He's driven by that magical compulsion.
So he goes back to Tintagel. How?
He goes back, but in disguise again. This time, as a madman. A court fool. It's a brilliant psychological disguise. Why a fool? Because a fool, in medieval courts, was often allowed to speak uncomfortable truths that others couldn't. They operated outside normal social rules. He shaves his head in patches, rubs dirt on his face, carries a club. He looks completely wild. He gets into the castle and starts acting erratic.
Making crazy pronouncements.
Yeah, exactly. Saying things that sound like nonsense. His house is in the clouds, made of roses and dawn. He wants to trade his sister for Queen Iseult. But then he starts weaving in things that aren't nonsense. Specific private details that only he and Iseult the Fair could possibly know.
Oh, he's deliberately trying to force her to recognize him through the madness.
Precisely. He torments her publicly by referencing their shared secrets. The Morholt's poison, the sword splinter, her golden hair, the dragon's tongue he cut out. And finally, the most potent secret, the love potion itself. He declares something like, "Yes, I drank a potion once, and I'm still drunk from it, Iseult. Drunk with a thirst that will never fade." He's reminding her, testing her loyalty to their shared fate.
How does she react?
At first, she's horrified, maybe thinks he is just a cruel madman mocking her. She curses him. But Brangian, ever watchful, recognizes the hidden meanings, the shared history. She confirms it for Iseult. Finally, Iseult understands. She calls him my master and my friend. They manage to snatch 3 desperate secret days together before spies spot him and he's chased away again. A fleeting reunion full of danger.
And this leads to the final tragic end.
It does. Back in Brittany, Tristan gets involved in another fight, helping his friend Caradon. He's wounded by a poisoned spear. And this time, the poison is different. It's incurable. Even the best doctors can't help him. Tristan knows he's dying.
So he makes one last attempt to see Iseult the Fair.
His final plea to fate, really. He asks Caradon, his loyal brother-in-law, to sail to Cornwall one last time. He gives him the green jasper ring as proof for Iseult. The instructions are simple, stark, and desperate. If Iseult the Fair agrees to come, if she's sailing back with you to heal me or just be with me at the end, hoist a white sail on the ship. If she refuses or cannot come, hoist a black sail. His life hangs on the color of that sail.
And this entire plan, this desperate hope, is overheard.
This is the final devastating twist. Iseult of the White Hands, his unloved, unconsummated wife, overhears everything. She hears the whole story, the magic potion, the eternal love for the other Iseult, the reason for her own years of humiliation. And in that moment, something snaps. Her own heartbreak, her own purely human jealousy and pain, fuels a cold, calculated desire for revenge. Unlike the magical compulsion driving Tristan and Iseult the Fair, her motive is entirely human.
So Cerridon sails, gets delayed by a storm. Tristan is waiting, dying.
Agonizingly waiting. He has himself carried to the cliffs at Penmark so he can watch the sea. The wait is torture. Finally, the storm breaks. A ship appears on the horizon. Cerridon has succeeded. Iseult the Fair is coming. He hoists the white sail, clear and bright against the sky.
But Tristan is too weak to see it himself.
Too weak even to lift his head. He has to ask someone nearby. And who's standing there? Iseult of the White Hands. He asks her, "Wife, what color is the sail?" And she looks him in the eye, sees the white sail promising his salvation, and delivers the fatal lie. The ultimate act of human vengeance against the workings of fate and magic. She says, "Sire, for its color, why, it is black."
No.
Tristan hears the word black. Believing Iseult the Fair has abandoned him, that his last hope is gone, his heart breaks completely. He turns his face to the wall, whispers, "He sold my friend 3 times," and dies. Just like that, before the ship with the real Iseult can even reach the shore.
So Iseult the Fair arrives to find him dead?
She lands, hears the castle bells tolling for a death. An old man on the shore tells her the news. Tristan is dead. He mourns him as a great knight, loyal and true. She goes straight to the hall, finds Iseult of the White Hands weeping over Tristan's body. Iseult the Fair walks up to her and asserts her own unique right, born from the philtre. "Lady," she says, "I have more right to mourn him than have you believe me. I loved him more." Then she lies down beside Tristan on the bier, puts her arms around him, kisses his lips, his face. And the text says simply, "So gave up her soul and died beside him of grief for her lover." The potion that bound them inextricably in life unites them completely in death.
King Mark. What does he do?
Mark, hearing the whole tragic story, finally understands the depth of their fated love and suffering. Noble to the end, he travels to Brittany. He has their bodies brought back to Tintagel. He buries them side by side in his chapel, honoring their bond in death. And then comes the final miracle, the symbol of their eternal connection. A beautiful green briar, strong and sweet-smelling, grows out of Tristan's tomb, arches over the chapel roof, and roots itself down into Iseult's tomb.
A living connection between them.
Exactly. People try to cut it down 3 times, the story says, but it always grows back, just as strong. Finally, King Mark understands the message. He commands that the briar must never be cut again. It remains as the enduring symbol of their inseparable fated love.
It really brings us back to that core theme, doesn't it? Fate versus free will. The philtre acts like this external force, almost canceling out normal morality, but creating this immense suffering precisely because they were noble people trapped by it.
Absolutely. Their agony comes from that conflict, their innate sense of loyalty, especially Tristan's to Mark, warring against this love they literally cannot choose to stop feeling. That ordeal scene with the technically true oath sums it up perfectly. They are loyal to the fate imposed on them, even as they betray human bonds.
And Bédier, in his retelling, dedicated the story, as you said, to all lovers as a source of strength against inconstancy and despite and loss and pain and all the bitterness of loving. It resonates because that conflict, that pain, feels deeply human, even with the magic.
It does.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. We have these 2 Iseults, both lives shattered by this story. Who do you think suffered more? Was it Iseult the Fair, bound by this inescapable magic, forced into deception, exile, hardship, her life defined by a love she never chose? Or was it Iseult of the White Hands, destroyed not by magic, but by a purely human experience, unrequited love, humiliation, leading her to commit that final, devastating act of calculated vengeance? The philtre cost everyone dearly, but perhaps the one who acted out of human choice rather than magical destiny carried the heaviest and maybe the most tragic burden in the end. Something to think about.